guys, welcome to my YouTube channel again. My name is Kenneth. This is Ken TV Show, and this is part 2 of our previous interview with Edmond. Welcome, Edmond.
Thank you very much.
So I think we had unfinished business, and I think we should now finish it now.
Right.
So how are you actually?
I'm okay. Maybe you.
I'm also okay, and we thank God. So we're just going to straight to our interview today. We're talking about your life and your encounter with addiction and how you've worked hard, how you've struggled with it. So I think our first part, we were talking about the journey. Now our second part is supposed to be the recovery period, the recovery process. So you realize you're into the system, you realize that you've gotten deep into it. And it was only you need to rescue you. So the people who are listening, for the sake of those who are watching, for the sake of those who are listening, there's people who are watching all around us. So my first question today is when you realized that you're now deep to it. So where did you seek the solution? Where did you seek the solution?
To start, like, I didn't even realize that I was so deep into alcoholism until when now, after, the events that followed after when my brother died and all, that's when these things began like seeming a little bit real, but the denial was a lot. I was still heavily into denial, but it struck me afterwards when everyone wanted me to, like, if you don't change, when everyone was pitching this idea of me going to rehab, but, obviously I was adamant before. Being that I was naive, I never knew what was happening there. There were these things that, once you go there, it's like a mini prison, or it's like, a mental asylum or something.
Yeah.
But I got into the idea once I realized that my life was on the line. I mean, I'd already lost my brother to alcoholism. So my life was on the line. So I checked into rehab. And that was last year, but 2022, November 22nd. And that's where my recovery began.
Which rehab was that?
It's called Prudent Camp in Thika.
Or at Thika?
Yes.
So you were you taken there, or you decided to go by yourself?
Well, it was a decision that I actually thought about overnight, and I was seriously drunk.
It was a personal decision, actually.
It was a personal decision. Actually, my brother had, my eldest brother had actually pitched that to me in the beginning of, the morning period. But I wasn't taking it seriously because the alcohol was a means of escape for me. So I was trying to imagine, we have been bosom buddies with alcohol for 7 years plus. The idea of dropping the habit, and especially the idea of having to lose friends, having to change your lifestyle, having to adjust, was far-fetched for me. But after careful consideration, at times, what people don't understand is that in as much as we are temporarily insane when you're under active addiction, there are those times that, you just, you have a meeting with yourself. You convene a meeting with yourself. There are those periods when, sobriety kicks in for the short time that it is. You have a meeting with yourself and you just say like, hey, Bana, if I continue doing this, if that guy lay in that casket, nikamona. So the next, it's probably going to be me. And if I can salvage it, if people are seeing the good in me, why can't I appreciate myself more? So I decided I'll go for it. Let me give it a try. I was not serious, actually. Saying, let me go give it a try. Like, if at all it's going to yield positive results, in don't benefit. So that's when I did.
So another question I would like to ask, what inspired you actually? What pushed you for you to go there? Is that there's that force that pushed you?
Right. Being someone who the family was looking up to at some point, being the last born and people having such high hopes in you, it got to a point where I was reminded of my greatness back then, in quotes. By greatness, I mean when I was still normal as a functional being. I craved belonging. I craved, you know, having things to my name. I craved living my dreams once again, from getting out of the gutter, from being written off. I wanted to redeem myself.
Yeah.
So I decided to, I wouldn't take a shortcut. I decided to walk the long road of recovery. Yes. So that inspired me. And also, there was nothing that was so creepy to me. Like, my dad is old now.
Yeah.
And my dad quit drinking alcohol without any sort of assistance 20 something years ago. And it would have been so ironic if my dad buried two of his sons to this vice that he managed to beat. So I thought to myself, my brother shouldn't have died in vain. And it would be such an insult if I also followed the same route, and died from the same thing that my father has constantly been praying against for me. So I decided to change.
Okay. So, when you are at the rehab, what challenges did you face? Somewhere you've never been, and my question is that what challenges were you facing there?
Oh wow. The biggest thing for me was the routine. You're breaking from something that became a part of you, your normal routine. Ile ya kuamka, you wake up in the morning, go grab a drink, the whole day just goes that way. You get another drink so that you could sleep and repeat the next day. So here, you're being reintegrated. It's like they were trying to bring back the old functional self. So there were routines. You had to take care of yourself. You had to participate in some activities like a team. And you had to, there were set rules. There were strict rules you had to follow. Like you couldn't be outside past 6. There are things you couldn't do inside there. You didn't have the freedom that you used to have. When I was actively in addiction, I did not recognize boundaries like fences or anything.
So another question I would like to ask you, what challenges were you facing when you were at the rehab?
Oh, the challenges.
Yeah.
For me, it was all about the routine and the fact that your freedom of movement was very limited, and also the fact that you are sharing a place with people who are addicted to so many different substances, and also sharing in different kinds of addictions. And it's also a place where you had people who had drug-induced mental illnesses. So it was a pretty scary environment at times when someone is brought in. There was a sense of insecurity at times because you don't know how to handle such a violent person in itself. And there were times of a lot of loneliness because you won't see or hear from anyone from your family for 1 month. And then there are a lot of expectations that you feel you're supposed to live up to. And the fear of the unknown, like the common question was, how am I going to do it outside? Like, fine, inside here I am condoned, but how am I going to survive, in the outside world? That's how we used to call it, without drinking. Because the urges were still there, in as much as the first few days it's controlled, there are withdrawals, definitely. After, you're not supposed to also be given those stabilizing drugs for long because they also have addictive properties in them. Now you wonder, after those, and your system still has to acclimatize. So the withdrawals also got nasty. But through God's grace, here we are.
That's good. So another question I would like to ask that did your family know when you were going to the rehab? Did your family know? Were they aware?
Oh yes, it was a conscious decision. I think the only person who came to know of this later was my dad. Because the decision had been made. I also never knew that actually I was going to be taken to rehab a day after, I came from Shags. But it was a conscious decision, and actually my brothers took it. I'm really grateful to him, by the way. It was a conscious decision that my family members had made, being that the environment to me was an enabling factor. I had easy access, so they just they made sure I never stayed a day longer after the burial, and yeah, my family members knew.
So how long did you take at the rehab?
The rehab, I took 91 days,
That's 3 months.
3 months plus one.
3 months plus one. So after the 3 months, at the end of the 3 months, so now you came back to 30. What was the reaction when you came back? Now you've been there for quite some times. So you came back to the 30 now. Did they accepted you? Or they still thought that you were the old?
Well, let me start by how I felt. I had a lot of insecurities on my part.
Yeah.
Because you can never be overconfident. You can never be too confident that between you and relapse. There's a huge wall. The biggest thing that helped me was I shifted environment. I never went back home. Plus, I never had a phone. Plus, my social media accounts, somehow, what happens with Facebook, someone hacked my account so I couldn't access it. So, in short, I didn't have access to my old contacts, my friends and whatnot. So, it was like it was in a new environment, and it was like you're writing on a clean slate.
So in a different environment.
I'm in a different environment.
world.
So that was it was a bit secured for me. The other bit was, now I was staying with my brother, and my brother was sort of paranoid, and I understand him. After the scare of losing my brother to alcoholism, and there was that whole regret that engulfed the whole family that, we could have done things differently. But since my brother died, it was an eye-opener. So they were trying to avert whatever that was potentially going to kill me in the same way. And so after rehab, my brother was so paranoid about me getting out there, and maybe, unajua mtu wa pombe, you can sniff a chuom anywhere. So long as you're determined to go and drink, you will always find a drinking den. And so my brother knew that I could wake up as early as 3 a.m. to go and drink. So trying to govern me was going to seem close to impossible. But so winning his trust. There was a difficult period where I wasn't allowed to move out on my own. Like, I wouldn't maneuver. He always wanted to, take me to school, for instance. If I wanted to go someplace, he'd either tell me not to go. And, being a grown-up, there would be that conflict.
So another question. How long did it take you for you now to go back to the site? You said that immediately you left the rehab, you went to a different environment so that you could start afresh. You are moving away from the old, from the other society, because maybe there was that maybe feeling of let me say feeling of unknown. So you came to that, and then now, for how long did it take you now to go back to the society and mingle with them and interact with them?
Well, my brother is a Christian, and my brother wanted me to interact with the right kind of people, sort of. Also, I think. So we used to have fellowships in our church, evening fellowships. It's like a neighborhood thing every Friday. So my brother would make sure anytime, because I personally never wanted. I was too paranoid. Like, I felt, there's this sort of thing that comes in with being a rehabilitated person. You feel like an ex-convict to some extent. You just feel different, and it's normally associated with shame. So most people wouldn't really understand that rehabs are not such bad places. So I never wanted to move out on my own freely. I never used to interact, and so it was like my brother's way of getting me out of the house. Plus, I had to go back and start, chasing my academics,
Yeah.
So I had to get out of the house to go and, for the first time, do something for myself. And my brother was accompanying me there. But with time, I started easing up. So it started like, it was like a week. I only took like 2 weeks of seclusion. The rest started moving on.
And after leaving the rehab, did you have that feeling that sometimes when you're passing up, maybe a restaurant or a bar, you feel like that there's something you're missing here?
Oh yes, oh yes. There are triggers, definitely. People, places, and things, PPTs. You definitely know what alcohol used to do. Like personally, I loved my drink, Nasiwezi Kata. And I knew how I felt when I was drinking. I knew the kind of music I liked listening to when I was drinking. You know, I could see some ambience, I could see something happening, and it, brings back old memories. So, and then the cravings were there. It doesn't mean that now that you are rehabilitated, that you're now, addiction, what people don't understand is that it's a disease. And the only remedy is by staying away from whatever would trigger, like, a relapse, which is alcohol itself for me. So the best I could do is avoid that route and avoid such company up until that point when I felt like I could get a hang of myself. And I have never felt I've never felt that confident to the extent of like I would risk to go back. And I would only risk to go back if I have someone who understands my problem and can help me govern it. Because a relapse is just a way.
I think you just even answered my next question, where I wanted to ask you that how were you managing that relapse of you getting that temptation of going back? I think you've answered the question. So I think we are coming to an end. I've seen the whole process. There's a post of you I saw. Is it last year when we were closing the year? It was in December, I think. On 31st or what? So you posted that the number of days you've been sober, and to me, I think that is an achievement. So for up to now, we're in 2024 now. So ever since you left the rehab, so how many years or how many days, how many months have you stayed sober?
Well, I can count my recovery days from the day I got into rehab because, I stopped drinking from that day.
You've never touched
I've never
alcohol.
touched alcohol completely for 1 year, 1 month, today to Kotare 7, and 10 days. Yes, 1 year, 1 month, 10 days.
Oh, that's a good job.
Yeah.
So I think we're coming to an end. The people who are watching us, and the aim of this is not the aim of what we are doing here. There's somebody who's watching, somebody's going through the same thing. What can you tell him? There's the same person going through the same stuff as you, worse or even less worse than yours. So what can you tell that person?
All I can say is you are not meant to function under the influence of any drug, and you don't have to be yoked. You don't have to be yoked to that habit. It is something that can be reversed, and you can live a happy lifestyle without necessarily doing drugs or anything. And by the way, it all starts out, everyone thinks, they can handle themselves or they can handle their liquor, for instance. Until you can't, and you won't even notice how fast you're sinking into addiction. If you can avoid it, if you notice that you have problems, reach out. Don't hold yourself in a cocoon thinking that your case is unique. You've been there, I've been an addict for over 10 years. But here I am now celebrating a year, and it has been a year of fabulous things in my life, I wouldn't lie to you. And there is never a solution in drugs. At the end of the day, when you're sober, you will still find those problems there, and you have to face them head on. So the better you know how to cope with life stresses, the sooner you'll avert yourself from such things. And usinyamaze, addiction thrives in secrets. Reach out. Find someone you can confide in case, because all these things, they spring from somewhere. Find someone you can confide in. And if you really need help, there's so many people willing to reach out to help you. Don't isolate yourself. And more so, manze, there's a living God out there who pulls people from the trenches. Natakuosha, and you'll be someone in the end.
So, there's something I'd like to ask you at the end of the show that what's your plan? Do you have any plan that you can start something where you can be advising people, you can be helping, reaching out to the society? Do you have such a plan?
Oh yes. I've actually been thinking of because it's something that I think I am passionate about. I have been thinking of just reaching out, to people who probably are suffering similar or maybe different things compared to myself, and having a forum, where people can just come and talk about whatever it is that they are feeling, whatever it is that's happening, whatever it is that's going on, to sensitize people of the realities of drug addiction in the country and mental health awareness in this country. I know it's cliche, but people don't know how deep it is until at some point you are there. And I can testify, I also had a mental illness. I was diagnosed with MDD, which was also drug induced. I had to take pills for like 1 year. So I know how it feels like. And if you have these regular conversations and stop making it seem like, because an addict is a sick person, we stop making it seem like, it's a taboo out there, yet these people need genuine help. So it's high time, we stepped up these things. And the government also takes these things seriously. Like, we can't say a government that survives on sin tax cannot set up rehabilitation centers for the same thing that they're obtaining taxes for.
Yeah, that's true.
So, yeah.
So, another cool, as we wind up, I think your story has really touched me. I also, initially when we were talking, I told you about I have a brother who's an addict. And actually, I think from this interview and the previous interview, I think I've learned a lot. I need to change how I think and how we treat him. I've not had that that close connection with him, but I think starting from today, as we are talking, I'm beginning to change my thinking, the way I think and the way I relate with him. It's not easy, but I think this story has really, really touched me.
Yes.
So, the people who are watching you, where can they find you? Can you tell them your social media platforms where they can find you?
On Facebook, I go by Edmond Sylvan Obumba. Edmond with a U. You can find me there. On Instagram, Sylvan_Obumba. On TikTok, at Ed Sylvan. Is it Ed Sylvan? I haven't really mastered it. Eddie Sylvan, okay? I was on X. I'm not that frequent on X, so don't even bother. And my phone number is 0702 944 787. Yeah, just give me a call. You'll find me on WhatsApp.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think Edmond, it was a pleasure having you.
Thank you, man.
I think I'm grateful. I look forward to us working together. Even in your project, I think we should meet and discuss and see what we can do.
Yes, sure.
No, good to give back to the society, and God has given you that. God has given you the might, the power. He's given you that talent.
Sure.
So I think it's good to share and to help, because I think there are so many addicts. Usually, so many addicts. People are going through. There's those who are suffering from depression, and most of this depression, I've realized, they are even alcohol and drugs related.
Yes.
Yeah, because if somebody is going through something, they sort to go to use drugs, thinking that that will console them. But at the end, you find that it's something that it's just a way of procrastinating. Finally, the way you said, the reality will come and hit back at you. So I'm grateful.
Thank you.
Thanks for visiting us at our studio.
Thank you very
So
much.
thank you guys. Ken TV Show. Thank you for those who have subscribed. Those who are subscribing, those who are commenting. I think we are moving on well. Our target is 10,000 strong And for those who have subscribed, Voken TV family, it's a family where we all belong. We're so grateful. Thank you.